Imagine if the world has already ended once, not as a metaphor, the literal, terrifying erasure of an entire global civilization. Every city, every structure, and every soul was swept away because a single warning was ignored for exactly 950 years. This divine account reveals a specific flaw in human nature that applies directly to you, right now. Generations after Prophet Adam, early humanity followed a single path. There was one God, just one truth, and absolute unity in belief. Then, a group of highly respected, righteous men passed away. Their names were Wad, Suwa, Yaghuth, Ya'uk, and Nasr. Their communities were completely overwhelmed by grief. To cope with the loss, they did something that seemed innocent. They carved their faces into stone, simply to remember the men they loved. Time passed. The original generation died out, and the true purpose of these memorials was forgotten. The children saw statues, assumed their parents prayed to them, and began actively worshiping them. The greatest spiritual catastrophe in human history was not born through war or force, but through the slow, tragic process of grief and forgetting. Into this corrupted, idolatrous society, Allah sent Prophet Nuh. He stepped in as a solitary figure of truth against an entire civilization. His strategy was relentless. He preached day and night. He spoke to massive public crowds and engaged in quiet, private conversations behind closed doors. He challenged the logic of bowing to carved stone by pointing to the sky. He asked them to look at the moon as a light and the sun as a lamp, challenging them to recognize the Creator who designed the universe itself. The city's wealthy chiefs listened, but their response was pure mockery. They pointed out that only the poor, the weak, and the socially marginalized believed his words. The elites offered a manipulative deal. They would listen to his message only if he banished his lower-class followers. Nuh refused. He told them these people were the guests of Allah and not his to turn away. The elite's rejection had nothing to do with a lack of evidence. It was about protecting their own social status and maintaining their hierarchy. The disbelievers then deployed their most effective tactic. Fathers actively indoctrinated their children, teaching them to hate and ignore Nuh before they were even old enough to understand his message. This siege of rejection continued for nearly a millennium. Finally, Allah revealed to Nuh that the case was closed. No one else from his people would ever believe. After 950 years of extreme patience, Nuh raised his hands. He made a terrifying prayer, asking God to leave not a single disbeliever alive on the earth, because they would only lead future generations astray. Allah accepted the prayer and issued a specific command. Nuh was to build a colossal ark under divine instruction, constructed in a dry, isolated desert environment. As Nuh built this massive ship miles away from any ocean, the elites walked by and laughed. They asked if he expected the wind to drag his boat to the sea. The ark stood as the ultimate physical manifestation of a divine warning, one the elites were too proud to acknowledge. God promised an ordinary sign to mark the exact moment the flood would begin, a common clay household oven. Inside Nuh's home, the dry clay floor of the Tannur began to seep. Suddenly, water began to boil and violently gush upward from the base of the oven. Outside, the earth fractured, releasing vast subterranean oceans, while the sky opened up with a torrential, unprecedented volume of rain. As the ark floated on waves the size of mountains, Nuh faced the most agonizing moment of his life. He stood on the deck and screamed out to his own son, who was stranded in the rising water. He begged his son to board the ark, but his son yelled back that he would climb a mountain to save himself, choosing his own strength over divine refuge. A wave crashed between them. Nuh's son was swept away, destroyed by the arrogant belief that human capability could outlast a divine decree. Finally, the divine command came for the earth to swallow its water and the sky to clear. The ark came to a peaceful rest on the rocky summit of Mount Judi. Centuries later, reaching the end of his long life, Nuh gathered his surviving sons around his deathbed. This was a man who lived a millennium and witnessed the apocalypse. He distilled his entire life's wisdom into 2 final commands: worship God alone and beware of pride. Every person alive today descends from the survivors on that ark. That legacy forces us to confront the critical divine warnings we are ignoring.